Software company Visual Purple has launched a new project with the goal of making Google search better. The concept is called GUI search, and it is designed to solve the challenge of exploratory search. Visual Purple has already built an app geared toward analysts and researchers, but now it is planning to bring this technology to everyone in the form of an iPad app and a Firefox browser add-on. The company has launched a Kickstarter project in hopes of raising $125,000 by June 8th. And Ed Heinbockel, one of the brains behind this project, is joining us now to talk more about this initiative. Thanks for being with us, Ed.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Great. Well, for starters, just help us understand what GUI search really is. It has been labeled as a Google on steroids with privacy, but what exactly does it do?
You know, it's a great question, and it probably shouldn't be such a hard question to answer, only because we're so close to the technology. Part of our challenge has been able to couch this in a way that people can get their heads around. Perhaps think of it as an intelligent layer that sits atop the Google results and allows you to sort through the Google results. Perhaps one way of thinking of it is our technology does all the reading for you and bubbles up what you're really looking for and lets you navigate those results.
So GUI search has been said to really open the door on exploratory search. So can you define this for us?
Sure. There are two types of search: a simple lookup, which is what most people do. You go to Google or to Bing or any search engine, and you're looking for something that you know what you're looking for, and you can plug in the terms, and bang, you're there. Exploratory search is when people really don't often even know enough to even be able to ask the best question, or to ask a question, an intelligent question. We find this with people that use Gister Pro, the heavy duty. If you can think of it as a military grade version of GUI, people who are professionals who are assigned to find information in domains of which they have no experience. So what's great about a tool like GUI or Gister Pro is, since it's reading everything, it reports the entities, the extracted entities. And in GUI, you'll see those extracted entities, the concepts, will bubble up in that network diagram, and you get to play with it. So that's exploratory search is probably best defined as just looking for things in domains you don't even know enough to ask the right question.
Well, why do you believe that GUI is really necessary for taking search forward?
Well, I think that search is not a solved problem, and I'm not sure if it ever will be a solved problem. I think back to those two types of search, a simple lookup, I think that Bing and Google do a really good job on that today. There's some sub rosa kinds of things around there in terms of privacy, anonymity, and the best results coming up that's debatable as to how good a job they're doing on that front. But so simple lookup, they do a good job at. But when you get into these realms of trying to find information that is perhaps buried down in the results for whatever reason or reasons, maybe the search engines aren't refreshing their indexes enough. Because if you think about it, we'll talk about Google. It doesn't matter what, insert search engine name here. They can only, it's a big job to crawl the web. It's a big job to index it. And it's perhaps even a bigger job to refresh that index periodically in a way that people are getting the most current information whenever the issue is searched. So what we're doing is, it's a trust but verify, right? We look at those results. Like GUI, we'll go to the first couple hundred results from Google, and we're going to read all those, bubble up the strongest signals, those concepts, display those in a graph, and let you take and navigate through that data off those terms. I'm not sure I answered your question, but
you did. If you could get into now really how GUI search protects user privacy.
Sure. GUI is we're taking a heavy-duty cloud application, and we're bringing it to the consumer market. And the cloud component is not free. So we had to figure out a way to make essentially we wanted to keep this a low barrier to entry, a high value proposition for the user. And we didn't believe there would be and we still don't believe there's an appetite for people to pay for search. So we took our cue from SETI at Home, which you may or may not, your viewers may or may not be familiar with, but it's Search for Extraterrestrial Intelligence. And it's been around for quite a while. And over the years, there's been as many as several million people that have participated. And I was one of the early adopters of this. Essentially, as a user, you agree to let your computer in its off hours do some work for SETI at home. So we're taking that same model of excess cycles and excess bandwidth, and as part of a GUI group of searchers using GUI, you basically allow your machine to help in that. So what happens is, when you do a search, that search is parsed out into little pieces and distributed across the GUI group. And it could be your GUI group of maybe 10 or 100 or 200 or 1,000 users, or it could be to a larger Uber group of GUI group. Mm-hmm. But what happens is those little pieces of search get distributed, and they do their job. Everything is encrypted, goes out, does its piece of the work, reports back to your PC, to your iPad, and reassembles all the work from all the nodes of the GUI groups. So people will not know what other people are searching for. They're just taking one little piece of that process. So that way, for an organization or company or an individual to reassemble that search in a cohesive, coherent fashion is virtually impossible. Although I won't say it's impossible, because if somebody wants to apply enough time and money and computing horsepower, you can pretty much do anything.
That's true. That's true. Well, what is your response to search engine startups such as DuckDuckGo that are basically trying to take on Google by eliminating spam, providing relevant results, and also protecting privacy? Do you think that it and others like it can compete with Google?
Absolutely, and I've been a fan of DuckDuckGo from the beginning. Gabe, I think, has done a great job. As started out as a one-man band, and I have nothing but respect for him and what he's done with DuckDuckGo. And I haven't seen stats of late, but I remember a month or two ago they had exceeded 1 million searches a day, and climbing. I think they took in a little venture money last year, and I think it's great, because I think there are a growing percentage of people are starting to realize that, wait a minute. Yeah, Google's good, but Google knows a lot about me. Maybe I'm not too comfortable with that. And in fact, if Google wants, they can pretty much tell anybody the most intimate details of my life and my concerns and my fears. And and Google's even talked about this. They know more about you perhaps than you do. And and the bottom line is, they're a company that has to, if they're served a national security letter for whatever reason, they have to comply with that. So essentially, using Google or any of the popular search engines, you pretty much just have to, if you're going to do that without going through something like GUI or DuckDuck just to do basic stuff, you basically relinquish any rights of privacy. And I don't think a lot of people know that, but it's a growing number of people are coming to realize that. And I think the change in terms of service on March 1 by Google started to shine the light on that.
Right. So why would, with what you just said, why would someone use GUI search over a platform such as DuckDuckGo?
DuckDuckGo provides anonymity, and I think they do a really good job of presenting the results, and if you will, it's private. That's great, but they don't do, at the end of the day, that intelligent reading that GUI provides, reading all the stuff for you and bringing back that trust but verify approach. It doesn't matter if it's DuckDuckGo or any search engine. That's a layer that we have that others don't, and that's what I think that's the real value. It's saving you the time of going through and clicking on every link, running the distance, and really finding the best information.
Right. Well, there is another Kickstarter search engine project called CDNPAL that is using Facebook's Open Graph to take aim at Google. So as more of these types of efforts rise up, what do you think this means for Google?
I think that people are starting to look for alternate ways to search, and it doesn't take a lot of people. I mean, if you think about the sheer numbers of search, and I don't think anybody at Google is laying awake at night going, "Oh my gosh, GUI's going to eat our lunch," or CDN or DuckDuckGo. And I don't think they're worried about that. I think they're more worried about, at least the articles I've read and people I've talked to, they're more worried about they're not big fans of Apple, and they're certainly not big fans of Facebook, because if you think about it, people are in Facebook, they're in a walled garden, and Facebook wants to keep you there, and that's a direct threat to Google. So I think their threat analysis doesn't really show GUI or Visual Purple or CDNPAL or DuckDuckGo. I don't think they're worried about, I think, trends. Facebook trend, the trend of mobile. That's something that I think these people worry about. You start looking at the numbers of what's happening with the move to mobile searches. There's some pretty startling stats there. That's why we're big believers in the iPad and the tablet market. We're extremely excited about that going forward in the future as a new way of computing, and with GUI and the interactive nature of if you will, that fluid network diagram. I think people, at least our belief is that people will gravitate to a more interactive venue to do things, and this is just a way of providing that interactive venue, an intelligent interactive venue to Google results. And it could be Bing. We could have it just hooked up to Bing or to multiple, but we chose Google for the reasons I cited earlier.
Right. Well, since it basically works on top of Google, would GUI search be open to being purchased by Google if the opportunity came about?
Well, we're always open to new ideas and discussions. Unless it's unless it was an unfriendly foreign government, we're open to discussions, certainly. Google has what they call advanced search, right? And most, not I shouldn't say most people. There are people that use advanced search in Google, and they tend to be hardcore researchers. Students will use it, and it's essentially Boolean search, and you can plug in parameters. Okay, if you think about it, it hasn't changed a lot in however many years it's been, 10 years. So I look at GUI and that approach to search with this intelligent layer. That to me is a no-brainer for somebody like a Google to have as their advanced search, is to plug in the overarching technology that GUI has. That would make a lot of sense to me, whether it be Google or Bing or someone like that. But
we'll see. Well, in terms of the Kickstarter project, what do you plan to do with the funding that you hope to raise?
Well, basically, we'll focus efforts on, our day job is just your pro, and that's the professional version of this technology. So there's the care and feeding of clients on that front. What we wanted to do is two things with Kickstarter. We wanted to get the idea out there of this technology is even available to consumers, and let them vote. If we do a good job on the messaging, which arguably we may not have, I don't know. But if we can get the messaging correct in terms that people can relate to and understand, because at the end of the day, this is all fairly complex for most people, and we live and breathe it, so it's second nature to us. But if it's a simple message, it's people can understand it, it resonates, they agree that there's a real value add, then let them vote with their dollars, and then off we go, and we take and we create this pared down version of just your pro on the iPad. So, the technology roadmaps there, this is just what we'd call just block and tackle translation and programming. So there's no technology risk for it. The bigger risk really is in the marketing side. The positioning and the messaging of the tool, is it what people will want and use and really enjoy and derive great value from. That's at the end of the day the most important thing.
Well, best of luck with the funding and also the future of GUI search. Thank you so much for talking with us.
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome. And for more information on this project, visit GUIsearch.com. I'm Abby Johnson reporting for WebPro News.